Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. In today's program, we will be talking about one of the most significant events that is going to be shaping the future of global politics and political landscape in the coming days. That is US presidential election 2024. American voters are set to cast their votes on November the 5th, and the world is watching closely because these elections and their outcome will be shaping the future of course, global alliances, economies and policies of the world. Of course, the voters will be voting between former President Donald Trump, representing the Republican Party, and Vice President Kamala Harris, who is a Democratic candidate. In today's program, we will be talking about different dimensions of these important US elections, what it means for American people, and how its results and outcomes will be shaping the future of global politics. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Ahsan Hamid, who is Executive Director, Policy Research Center. Welcome to the program. We're also joined online by Mr. Baloch, who is a former diplomat. Welcome to the program. Mr. Ahsan, let me start with you. When we talk about these upcoming elections, first of all, of course, when Kamala Harris came into picture in these elections, there is very less time for her to campaign. How do you see this has reshaped the politics and the, of course, outcomes and the dimensions of these upcoming elections in the US?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. Kamala Harris joined the campaign as a, to fill the shoes of Joe Biden, which he unexpectedly announced even without consultation with his party leadership, Democratic Party leadership. And Kamala had
but there was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, of course.
Especially after the debate.
Yeah, exactly. He had his weak moments, and it was Biden said that I left the campaign for the sake of democracy, but it was for the sake of the survival of the Democratic Party. Actually, had he continued, he would have no chance at all, and the polls at that time showed. But Harris, on the other hand, it's really impressive how she has stepped up her game and sort of catch up to what Donald Trump has been doing. She at one time when she announced, she was leading the polls. Now they are just head to head in all the polls that have been conducted. The recent one by New York Times also said that both of the candidates are actually head to head. Harris has a lot of advantages in terms of her ability to attract the voters. One, because she is very young compared to all she's 2 decades younger to President Biden. She's 18 years younger to President Trump, who is her rival. So she has that charisma to attract young voters across America. And she's been doing that successfully.
Right, but isn't at the same time, different polls also suggest that a lot of people don't know much about Harris's policies still. So, do you think this is going to be impacting the election outcome? And also, how significant is today's debate?
Yeah, I think that's you have indicated it very right. A lot of voters don't know Harris as a presidential candidate. They know her as vice president. In US politics, vice president does not have a lot of real impact on policy for that matter. And she did not have a long period to explain to her voters or convince her voters on her agenda or present it to them, because she just jumped into the campaign. She was catapulted, and she sort of had to catch up on the what was left of the Democratic Party. Trump, on the other hand, has very established notions about him. His personality, he's been in the limelight since forever. I mean, he's been a celebrity. Everyone knows his views on immigration, on economy, on business, on liberalization or contraction of economy, on foreign wars. He has been a media face forever. So and he has been he was the presidential candidate in 2016. He won that election. So his voters are pretty clear about what his policy is going to be.
Right, right. And
Harris voters are not.
Right. And G.R. Baloch sahab, when we talk about former President Trump's policies, of course, his voters, and when we talk about his voter base that are mostly uneducated white voters, how do you think his strong policies, especially when we start from his policies and stance on immigration, is going to be impacting the election outcome in coming days?
Maryam, thank you for taking me on this talk show. I think as the rest of the world is watching this highly contested elections, I think we have to look at the two candidates, and we also have to keep in mind the polarization from the seams of the society and the electorate in the US has taken place. We see that the electorate is divided between the forces which are taking them back to nationalism, to conservatism, to even religiosity and populist style of a leader who wants his followers to follow him, he is right or wrong. Imagine that so many cases, so many also evidence of so many accusations. Still, they say even a vote has not reduced as far as vote bank is concerned. All those red states remain red solidly behind Trump, one. Second, now, the other portion on which the society is divided is mostly believes in diversity, they believe in multilateralism, they believe in the democratic values. So essentially what we see in these two candidates, the way they personify, is essentially the division, the cultural division, the political division. In fact, I would say even it's an ideological division of the US as a polity, which includes, of course, the society, the centers of excellence, all of it. So, so I think what will happen is that there will be change, quite a change. So the world is watching. The world is actually on the edge, especially the US allies, the NATO members, the European Union, China, and rest of the Latin American. So I think it's a very, very anticipated, very anxious kind of moment for not only the US voters, but the rest of the world. Yes, Maryam.
Right, right. Jiabaro sir, you have, of course, rightly alluded to the polarization that is being depicted in these upcoming elections in the American society. But at the same time, of course, we know when we talk about US elections and the US election system, the swing states are going to be important. But still, when we talk about many swing states, there is a razor thin difference between both the candidates. How do you think this is going to be playing out in coming days?
I think I would rather go from macro to micro. Essentially, in fact, there's several now US intellectuals and political thinkers now believe that their electoral system, and especially the electoral college system, has run its complete shelf life. It needs to be revisited. It has to be seen, because we've seen in the several, at least past 3 or 4 elections, that despite a candidate winning the popular vote, but if a candidate wins or she wins the electoral college, it becomes a president. So in a way, theoretically speaking, or strictly speaking, that president does not.
Recently, in of course, in recent history, in of course Hillary Clinton's election as well, like she won the popular vote.
Only that,
right.
Yes. So
Right.
what is, so I think this thin, razor thin edge over one another will ultimately probably will again go back. I go back to my thesis that the society is divided, but there is a now very thin number of people who are not decided. So they will decide essentially what will happen. I mean, it's a paradox that it's a democratic system, but a minority will decide which which one of the candidates wins the presidency of the US. So undecided voters will decide essentially that whether Kamala Harris becomes the president or Mr. Donald Trump. Yes, Mary.
Right, right. And of course, Mr. Ahsan, when we talk about undecided voters and independent voters are going to be a key factor in these elections, how do you see that the recent endorsement of Kennedy Jr. For Trump is going to be playing out in, of course, attracting those independent voters?
Well, I think any sort of endorsement, I mean, the margins are so thin between both the candidates that any endorsement, any support would help them a long way. And if that support comes from the swing states, then it's icing on the top, because it's pretty much established that these what they call the battleground states are going to be the deciding factor in this elections. And if that endorsement helps Trump, I mean that can be a significant achievement for him.
Right, and when we talk about, of course, different issues, climate change, Mr. G.R. Baloch remains a key factor in US politics, and both candidates have very stark views on this, and this is going to be shaping how the world is going to be dealing with climate change in coming not years, not only 4 years, but for decades to come. So do you think the common American voter is going to be consider climate change while he's going out to vote for one of the candidates?
Maryam, since I have served twice in the US, so believe me, it's very strange to share with you that the common voter is so kind of ignorant about the rest of the world and all these big issues that we are discussing, the climate change, the confrontation, and all of that, except for the terrorism, of course, because they are impacted. So it's not the voter who will decide. Actually, a partial answer to your question is that this voting and this election is not about that much international issues as it is about the domestic policies. But coming to this climate change, yes, Trump actually is part of that skeptical camp which is against the climate change. They don't even believe in it. In fact, he is on record of saying that this is all like it's a fiction. He doesn't believe in the science of climate change. So I think it's a bad news, and he actually pulled out America from the Paris Agreement. So and US, as we know, all of us, is one of the biggest polluters. And if if Trump comes again and he follows his anti-climate formula, it's a bad news for the globe, for the world, because we already know that the clock is ticking as far as the carbon. They're short of 1.5. They will not be able to achieve by 2030. So I think it's a bad news for the climate change, or in fact for the globe, the climate of the globe. If he comes and he follows up with he doesn't change his mind and he follows up with his anti-climate change policies. To the contrary, if Harris comes, I think there is a hope that America, as we've seen that Biden also has again in his 4 years did go back on US commitment to climate change. So I think there's a big stake now in this election as far as the world is concerned, especially the climate change, in my view, is the biggest issue which can suffer or otherwise.
Right, yeah. Right. And Ahsan, what's your take on this? Do you think common American citizen is going to be taking into consideration the issue of climate change? And also when we talk about economic policies, especially that are being promised by Trump to working class, how this is going to be impacting or playing out?
Yeah, I think more than the climate change, the economics are going to play a major role in swaying the votes of the public. Biden's administration has been very weak in terms of improving the jobs. Unemployment is one of the highest in the US currently. He has been not very successful in introducing policy reforms to tax the big corporates um, essentially in US taxation is a big issue, and taxing the rich is one of the, even though Trump himself is a businessman, he's a tycoon, but he has promised over and over again to his voters that he will tax the rich. So I think more than climate change, climate awareness, is still a very nascent subject, even in countries like US, and it's still, not on that top priority for the voters. I mean, for example, in certain states, abortion law can be. It's also a very polarizing topic. It's a very sensitive topic in US as well. That can be one of the deciding factors in some states, not in all. But overall, in broader perspective, I think economy and how these two candidates in today's presidential debate plan out, their roadmap for economy is going to be an essential factor. Decisive factor. And I think Harris has been very vocal and very, very clear. She, the kind of personality that she has, she is very, giving out detailed plans about her plan for the economy. On the other hand, Trump has more,
and he's
flamboyant.
very unpredictable as well.
He's unpredictable, and his talks are more flamboyant and does not have a lot of substance in them. So how the voters take it is going to be.
But at the same time, Ahsan, we know that a lot of his voter is from the working class. So what is the main appeal for those voters?
Well, Trump is considered as someone who is not part of the establishment, in US establishment. He's someone considered as, someone who works out of the system. And he's not controlled by the system. And that is one of the, major debates in US in the working class people, that, we need a president who is not part of the, the system. And Harris, because her baggage that she carries of working with Biden, she's not been able to project herself as someone, someone revolutionary or someone who can, or reformist for that matter.
Right.
Trump has that, has that charisma that he has inculcated in the minds of its voters, that, he's a reformist.
Right, yeah. Right. And Baloch Sahab, what are the implications for US foreign policy if Kamala Harris comes into power, especially given her stance on issues like Ukraine war and situation in Gaza?
I think if Kamala Harris comes back, I think it will be continuity of the policies being followed by Biden. And those policies are the traditional policies of the Democratic establishment, or the Democratic Party. I'm sure you all know, but just to share for the advantage of all of us, benefit of all of us, that all these political parties are interestingly backed up by a lot of think tanks of their own. Democratic Party has its own think tanks, Republicans have their own think tanks, and they continuously work on full time, and they come up with their own worldview, different policies, which then ultimately are then adopted by their candidates. So Harris would not be giving a new world order or her own vision of the world, how it should be run, or what will be the role of US. Essentially, she will be following that text. But just to break down into what she would likely to do, she would continue with rebuilding the alliances that Biden tried to do after the Trump's those 4 years in which he kind of even threatened to disband NATO. So I think they rebuild the alliances, they'll engage, they believe in the multilateralism. Democratic candidates and their philosophy is multilateralism, while to the contrary, if you look at Trump, he believes in America first. That means he wants to take back America to their isolationist era, which was there in I think let's not forget that America has lived that an era before the Second World War, when US did not want to. In fact, US was a reluctant participant in the Second World War. So there is a history of US where they have opted to be alone and isolated. The reason is their history and their geography, because they don't have any immediate threat on their borders. So they can, and also they are so powerful, they have a powerful military, the economy and all of that. So they can afford to do that. So what Trump is in fact misleading or leading or giving his own perspective is that America doesn't need the world. Why should we burden ourselves with immigrants? Why should we fight these wars unnecessarily for others? Why should we protect Europe against Putin or anybody who attacks it? So I think it's a worldview which is different in terms of Trump and of course Kamala Harris, which brings a vision of a Democratic Party about how the world should be run.
Right, right. Of course, there are more prospects for a multipolar world if former President Trump comes into power. Thank you very much, Mr. G.R. Baloch, for joining us in today's program
Contrary.
and for your valuable
Thank
input.
you.
So,
Thank
Ahsan,
you.
when we talk about former President Trump, we know that he refused to concede in 2020 elections. So, do you think that this is going to be impacting the legitimacy of upcoming elections?
Well, I think he has seen, how the consequences of not conceding elections, and then there was attack on the U.S. Capitol Hill. He's still, facing federal charges in those riots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how he will react to this, the results of the election. And if he wins, of course, he won't be conceding then. But he's very unpredictable, to say the least. You can expect anything of Trump. I'm sure the U.S. authorities are this time well prepared to curb any such attack on any U.S. institution. But his voters are very charged. They are they see Trump as some visionary. They see Trump as as someone who can make America great again, as they say, as they call him. So him conceding or not conceding the elections, I don't think so. It will have any impact on the outcome of this election.
Right, but given the close poll between both the candidates, how significant is the voter turnout going to be in upcoming elections, especially in states that are considered to be the battleground for both the parties?
Yeah, I think with that regard, the turnout is going to be instrumental in this election. But be mindful that ultimately it is the Electoral College that has to decide, and it's not which candidate has the more number of votes. It's the Electoral College in which you have to get at least 270 votes out of the total 538. In previous elections, at least in last 5 elections, last 6 elections, we have seen that almost 4 times it was not the candidate who got the most votes, but instead the candidate who was got the most votes from the Electoral College, not from the voters. So I think in that regard, the turnout remains irrelevant. But overall, I think it can boost the legitimacy of the elections. It can boost the confidence of 2 candidates.
Right. And to talk more about this, we are joined online by Mr. Mohammad Shoaib, who is Assistant Professor at Quaid-e-Azam University. Research focuses on US and Chinese politics. Welcome to the program, Mr. Shoaib. Mr. Shoaib, like Ahsan earlier alluded to the significance of Electoral College in US elections. Can you tell us what is the role of Electoral College in US elections and how this is going to be impacting the outcome of course, these upcoming elections? And how could it affect the race if Harris wins the popular vote but loses the presidency?
So, Electoral College is an institution that was envisaged by the U.S. founding fathers, and they wanted to avoid becoming of the United States as a majoritarian state. So it plays a role of a balancer. But in recent years, particularly after 2001, in fact after 2000, we have seen that at least twice the loser has got more votes than the winner. And both times the losers were from the Democratic Party. It happened in 2000, it happened in 2016, when Democrats had more votes, but they could not secure more votes in Electoral College. Having said that, with regard to this election, I think Electoral College is again going to play a very crucial role because some big states which are blue states, I mean Democrats, they have more votes. So essentially, it's clear that Democrats will win more votes, but again, it will be decided in the so-called swing states, which for this election are 6 states. Uh, Whoever wins 4 out of the 6 swing states is going to win the election. At this point of time, uh, Harris is actually leading in the swing states, and Donald Trump is still a runner-up.
Right, and at the same time, Mr. Shoaib, in your opinion, what role are foreign actors like Russia is going to be playing in upcoming elections, especially when we talk about it in the context of AI and misinformation campaigns?
I will suggest you to not only focus on Russia because we have seen what is happening in the United States for the last 4 and 5 years. What happened on January 6th uh, when the rioters they stormed into the U.S. Capitol, it was because of a misinformation campaign, and they were somehow sure that if they invade the building, they would get away with it. Uh, Similar things can happen again. Russia would certainly like to play a role, but then there are also many actors which are inside the United States which have extremist views. They will also like to use the platforms which are available to them. Particularly in the recent times, we have seen that the owner of X, that is formerly Twitter, he has also shown uh, some leniency toward Donald Trump. He has allowed his account to be uh, to be used again. He also openly supports Donald Trump. In that case, uh, Twitter or X will also be used perhaps against the Democrats. And then there are many other websites. We are not very sure from where they are controlled, whether they are controlled from Russia. We are not. We should not ignore or neglect the Chinese as well. They may be even used from even the United States, but misinformation, deepfake, AI, they are going to influence the election. So already, when I try to look at things from the United States, there are so many AI-generated videos which appear very real. Uh, for for once, actually, people who have been following these elections, even they are surprised. Like, what's the origin of this video? And then you come to know, fine, this is an AI-generated video. But not all the people can differentiate between the videos which are real or generated by AI. So misinformation and technology are going to play a crucial role, and so forth. We don't really see actors and institutions equipped to counter uh, misinformation on this front.
Misinformation is going to be impacting the election outcome in these elections as well. But coming back to economic policies, Mr. Shoaib, what's your take on Trump's policies, especially catering to rural and working class? And do you think that this is going to be, of course, favoring Trump in upcoming elections?
That For that again, we have to look at the support base of both the Democrats and Republicans. When you look at the Republicans, they are favorable in the Rust Belt. They are favorable in the areas where people are in majority who do not attend the colleges, and they are in the low income strata. Trump promises them the golden days which are past. Uh, and those people, they are also culturally conservative. I think Donald Trump has a very solid support base among those people. Uh, but discussing the global economy, I don't really see Republicans have an agenda that resonates the people who are outward looking or people who are more futuristic. Uh, for instance, if you look at the big companies, their owners, they are fine with Trump's low taxation program, but if you talk to the college-educated people or people who are futuristic-looking, they want more restrictions on the big pharmas, the big companies, the big tech households. In that regard, in that regard, I think the Democrats have a more favorable situation for now.
And Mr. Shoaib, when we talk about foreign policy, in your opinion, how does Joe Biden's involvement in the Gaza conflict is going to be influencing the election campaign of Kamala Harris?
So, Gaza conflict in particular puts Kamala Harris in a very tough situation because, as for the voter base, the Democrats have always been popular among the minorities, among the Muslims, among the Latinos, blacks, for the last 50 years. Now, these are the people who have mostly come out in the streets in favor of Gaza. So essentially, people who are protesting, they have historically been voters of the Democrats. Now, Kamala faces a very difficult situation because she has to cater to those voters as well. Biden, people see him as an unashamed supporter of Israel's policy and Israel's so-called genocide. But for Kamala, she has to balance. I was looking at the DNC convention. Kamala mentioned Israel first. She said, if I am chosen as the president, I'm going to make sure that Israel has all the wherewithal to secure itself. But at the same time, in the next phase, she mentioned Gaza, and she said people of Palestine also have the right to have their own state, and they also have the right to live respectfully. So Kamala will try to balance her position between both Israel and Palestine, and I think she will be a little different than Biden because if she is elected as the president, she will also be looking at her second term. On the other hand, Donald Trump is a supporter of Israel. If Donald Trump is elected as the president, he is going to support Israel, perhaps without restrictions, because this term, by any way, is going to be Donald Trump's last term. So he doesn't face any re-election. He has already, we have already seen that when he was the president, he accepted Jerusalem as Israel's capital. So Israel enjoys more support with the Republicans as compared to Democrats. So people who support Palestine in the United States, their best bet is still Kamala Harris from the Democratic Party.
Mr. Shoaib, you of course said that this might be President Trump, if he is elected, former President Trump, if he is elected, this is going to be his last term. But at the same time, we know that he survived a recent assassination attempt as well. What do you think this has changed the political climate in America? And of course, in your opinion, how has it influenced voters towards, of course, former President Trump?
So, former president is a populist. People love him, and if we see his journey into politics, he has already diminished the role of the Republican Party. People who could have become impediments to his rise or who could have controlled him, Trump has totally vanished them. Now, as a Republican, you either support him or you are no more part of the mainstream. So that is why we have also seen the current nominee for vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party has also changed his views in favor of President Trump. The recent assassination attempt has made Donald Trump look more powerful. It has made President Trump look more macho, and now his supporters also feel alienated in a sense that they think that since the opposition could not win an election from Donald Trump, so they try to kill him. So Trump's support base has become more solid. His own position in the Republican Party has also strengthened. And I think he will like to play the victim card as election nears.
Same time, when we talk about Mr. Shoaib, former President Trump's policies, US remains one of the largest oil producers in the world, and of course one of the second countries that produces greenhouse emissions. So how do you see that the climate change policy of Trump is going to be influencing voters and of course the global debate surrounding climate change?
So climate change is still being debated. There are many skeptics who refuse this idea of human intervention and its impact on climate. Republicans have been very clear on this idea of climate change. Donald Trump, when he was the president last time, he pulled out the United States from Paris Climate Agreement. And he has already announced that if he is elected as the president, he will also significantly change the Inflation Reduction Act. That means the United States is cutting down on its shift toward clean energy, and Trump will allow more and more companies to drill oil and gas. And many of the actions and policies which have been introduced by the Biden administration, they are going to be reversed. Already, Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee has clarified to the people that he is also a climate skeptic. That means he's going to follow the lead of President Trump. And if he succeeds him in the future, he will not probably change his views.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shoaib, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. So, Ahsan, when we talk about, of course, the upcoming elections, there are a lot of predictions going on, and one of the important report that I came across was of historian Allen's prediction that is based on 13 key points that Harris will win the elections. Do you think that, how do you think that this aligns with the ongoing polling data?
I will say it's still too soon. US elections are very unpredictable. There can be.
When we look at his previous election predictions, he predicted for 10 elections, and out of those, 9 times he was right.
Well, good for him. But I mean, I have not studied his report, and I'm someone who does not believe in predictions, because in US elections there can be one incident and it can just sway the voters and change the whole perception and the public opinion. It can be one catastrophic, disastrous
and keeping
event.
in mind the of course upcoming elections and the chaotic process that we witnessed in lead to these elections, especially with Joe Biden dropping out. Especially it, of course, like you said, that it, of course, impacted the perception of Americans. But of course, in your opinion, how does it impacted the US democratic perceptions in other countries of the world?
Of the US democracy?
Yes.
I think US democracy has always been, it's been messy, it's been haphazard, but that's what it makes it stronger. That's what is the characteristic of US democracy. They have a lot of mess, but still, they have institutions that provide continuity to their system. And I mean, be mindful, coming back to the previous point, I mean, be mindful that Harris is still a vice president. And, whatever disastrous global event that happens in the run-up to the election will be going in her credit or discredit. So you could still expect a lot of things up until the elections. The polls are still saying that it's a very tight run, but you have to see until the election day.
And when we talk about if former President Trump is re-elected, this is going to be impacting US foreign policy.
Yeah.
Do you see weakening of alliances like NATO in his presidency?
Yeah, he's even during his speeches now, he has targeted NATO. I was watching the interview of John Bolton, the previous national security advisor to President Trump during his tenure, and he was saying that Trump was mentally prepared to withdraw from NATO. It was not just a political stunt; he was mentally prepared. But then, of course, the U.S. system, his advisors, sort of talked him out of it. So he still has that idea in his head that US is paying a lot of cost to NATO in terms of providing the security umbrella, and NATO members are not, contributing. You see the alliance in the Asia Pacific, the new alliances, the Quad alliances, the alliance in the Asia Pacific with Japan, with South Korea. These alliances can also be, impacted if this is the mindset that Trump is carrying in his presidency, that the alliance. Be mindful that in the U.S. foreign policy, Trump is a businessman, and he believes in give or take. Foreign policy is not about that. It's about long-term strategic interests, and you don't see how you can take some short benefits from an alliance. So Trump is approaching U.S. foreign policy as a business. He called himself the best deal maker. He wrote a book about himself, how he makes good deals. So he will be trying to attempt something stupid again, but the U.S. institutions, and pulling out of international treaties is not that easy in U.S. You have to get approval from Congress as well. The Congress has to ratify those actions by the president. But still, even if the Congress does not ratify such actions, U.S. president has a lot of influence. If there is an attack, the situation in Ukraine you are seeing, if there is an attack on another, European country or NATO country, and Trump, as the commander-in-chief of U.S. forces, does not decide to take action against that, his prerogative, and the Congress cannot. Congress can declare war, but they cannot force the president to send.
Candidate is pretty independent when it comes to foreign policy.
He is the commander-in-chief. Even if Congress declares war, the president can still decide not to send forces.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahsan. Hamid, for joining us in today's program. Of course, as we conclude today's discussion, it is clear that the upcoming American elections and its outcome is going to be impacting not only American society but the global political landscape as well. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.